Welcome to Watch Mojo. And today, we're looking at the very last performances of some of the greatest songs to have ever been written. Desperado, The Eagles.
Desperado, why don't you come to your senses?
Though not their last performance overall, the death of Glenn Frey certainly brought an era of the Eagles to an end. In 2015, he joined his bandmates for the final date of their tour, rocking a very amped-up Louisiana crowd with a string of their hits. That concluded with a rousing rendition of Desperado, co-written by Frey and Don Henley. Little did we know that Frey would sadly pass away 6 months later at the age of 67. While the band have continued to tour with Glenn's son Deacon on board, his death was most certainly the closing of a chapter. Ahead by a century, the Tragically Hip.
First we'd climb a tree, and maybe then we'd talk.
Fans of the Canadian music icons the Tragically Hip came to support their heroes in droves when they announced their final ever show in the town they formed, Kingston, Ontario, with the news that singer Gord Downie was terminally ill. This was more than just a goodbye to the band. In the end, the show was just about as poignant as you could imagine. They played 30 songs, 3 encores, and the event itself became a national sensation, viewed by a third of the Canadian population. They ended the show with Ahead by a Century. 18 months later, Downie had passed away. Proud Mary, Tina Turner. Are there any musicians who managed to pull off a career comeback quite like Tina Turner? Following the end of her turbulent marriage and collaboration with her ex-husband, Ike Turner, Tina could have very easily faded into obscurity. However, a massive resurgence in the 1980s completely flipped the script. By the time she reached 50 years in the business, she decided to return to the stage for one last tour. She went out there in her mid-70s and proved why she was an all-timer. Her final tour stop in Sheffield, England, was highlighted by a powerful rendition of Proud Mary, a song she had been rocking for decades prior. She announced her retirement shortly after. Summertime, Janis Joplin. There was so much to enjoy about Janis Joplin's brief career. Revered as one of the rising talents of her generation, Joplin eventually lost her life to an overdose at the age of 27. Her final show was at the Harvard Stadium in Massachusetts, and in classic Janis fashion, it displayed her at her very best. Her version of the George Gershwin-penned standard Summertime was the second to last song on the set, but it was the last time we heard Janis sing. The band finished the show with an instrumental, and Joplin took her final bow.
On a take to the sky.
Heart-shaped box, Nirvana. While Nevermind is most certainly the most famous and iconic Nirvana album, hardcore fans are more likely to flock to its follow-up, In Utero. The album represented a major change in sound and direction for the band, but its tour would ultimately be the last that Kurt Cobain ever embarked upon. The band's final gig took place in Germany and was hampered by several technical and performance issues. Cobain's voice was struggling, the acoustics were bad, and by the time the closer Heart-shaped box came around, the band were just trying to get it done. Kurt would take his own life a month later, sealing his place among rock music's most tragic figures. Hurricane, Bob Dylan.
Here comes the story of the hurricane, the and the authorities came to play.
Known for wildly varying his set lists from tour to tour, it's still surprising that Bob Dylan never decided to play his iconic hit Hurricane ever again after he closed that promotional chapter. Sure, it's a pretty heavy-handed protest song that was about a very specific time and place in history, but after the mid-70s, it practically disappeared. It's not the only famous song of his that he doesn't play anymore, but it is certainly one that would go down well if he ever decided to dust it off and make some lyric changes. Although, who knows what it would sound like with his modern-day voice.
Put in a prison cell, there was time he could have been the champion of the world.
Freebird, Lynyrd Skynyrd.
I must be traveling on now.
Out of all of the ways a classic era for a band can end, few groups got hit with a tragedy quite like Lynyrd Skynyrd. Right at the peak of their powers in 1977, a post-gig plane crash killed band members Ronnie Van Zant, Steve Gaines, and Cassie Gaines, as well as several others on board. That final show in the Greenville Memorial Auditorium in Greenville, South Carolina, was the last time fans heard the band performing in that original lineup. It was also the final performance of their magnum opus, Freebird, the song that closed the show. The best is yet to come. Frank Sinatra.
Best is yet to come, and babe, won't it be fine?
Though he had concluded his days on tour, Frank Sinatra's final ever concert came during a private event at the Desert Classic Golf Tournament. He took the stage to perform a series of standards while ending with the ominously titled The Best Is Yet to Come. That show would stand as the last one in his storied career, and 3 years later in 1998, he would pass away at the age of 82. Considering that he was one of the most iconic celebrity figures of the 20th century, it should come as no surprise that the world joined together in paying tribute to his legacy.
Well, it's wonderful.
American Girl, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Well, she was an American girl, raised on promises.
When Tom Petty and his band, the Heartbreakers, closed out their 40th anniversary tour with American Girl, it didn't feel like a goodbye. They seemed to be at the top of their game, despite the 4 decades they had spent on the road. They were just 3 years removed from their last studio albums, and by no means looking like they were running out of steam. However, fate had cruel plans, and just 1 week later, Petty died of an accidental overdose at 66 years old. Few bands managed to consistently produce the goods quite like Petty and his Heartbreakers did.
She was an American girl.
Hallelujah, Leonard Cohen.
It goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift.
It was a truly unfortunate thing that Leonard Cohen was forced back onto the road after discovering that his manager had stolen millions from his retirement fund. However, one good thing that came out of it was a huge resurgence in popularity for Cohen and a critically adored world tour. The final show of said tour took place in Auckland, New Zealand, and displayed Cohen in fine form. 3 encores and a series of his biggest hits made picking out one highlight real difficult. Of course, Hallelujah was the show's climax, though. When Cohen left the stage, it marked the last time we would hear these songs sung live. He passed away 3 years later, at the age of 82.
Hallelujah, hallelujah.
Redemption Song, Bob Marley.
Yes, this little song here is called Old Pirates, redemption song.
By the time 1980 came around, Bob Marley's health was well and truly failing him, although his star power had never been greater. The last show he delivered with his band, the Wailers, came in Pittsburgh's Stanley Theater, and nobody knew that this was his final statement. Marley was naturally in top form, performing a set that was big on classics. Given what we know now, the fact that he included Redemption Song was an extra special note. Despite the reggae flavor of the rest of his catalog, that track is just Marley, an acoustic guitar, and the truth. He passed away from cancer 1 year later, in 1981.
This all I ever have, did you know? redemption song.
Can't Help Falling in Love, Elvis Presley.
Wise men say, only fools rush in.
The story of Elvis Presley is one of triumph, innovation, but ultimately of overexertion and excess. His final tour displayed a man who had all the charisma and natural talent of a king, but he looked like a shadow of his old self. Elvis ended that run of shows with a date in Indianapolis and closed the gig with his seminal hit, Can't Help Falling in Love. Just a few weeks later, his health problems worsened and he died. His passing was a unifying moment for music fans across multiple genres, and to this day, it remains one of the most impactful deaths of the 20th century.
Falling
We Are the Champions, Queen. No frontman in rock and roll history has exuded the type of natural charisma that Freddie Mercury did. That made it all the harder for Queen fans to deal with him stepping away from the stage in the final years of his life. His battle with AIDS is one of the most well-documented health sagas in music, and eventually, he succumbed to that fight in 1991. His last show with Queen, however, was in 1986, where they delivered a stellar setlist to a legion of British fans. Nobody could have known it would be Freddie's last dance, and that We Are the Champions would be the last song he ever sang publicly. Johnny Be Good, Chuck Berry. No list of the hardest working musicians in rock and roll would be complete without a mention of the great Chuck Berry. While most musicians consider retirement as their late 70s and early 80s go by, Berry had no intention of stopping. He held a monthly residency in the bar and restaurant Blueberry Hill in St. Louis. This more stripped-back setting let Chuck indulge himself in a far less overblown stage show. As it turned out, he would play his last ever show there too, finishing his career with a 14-song set that of course included the great Johnny Be Good. If Chuck Berry should be remembered for one song, that was it. He passed away a few years later in 2017. Purple Rain, Prince.
I never meant to cause you any sorrow.
Though he was known for his bombastic full band performances, Prince's final tour was a far more intimate affair. The run of shows entitled Piano and a Microphone did exactly what they said on the tin. Hearing this funk, pop, and rock icon without his guitar or backing band led to a much more emotionally impactful concert experience. Behind the scenes, Prince was dealing with health issues and chronic pain, and eventually, he accidentally overdosed, causing his death at the age of 57. The final song he performed on stage just so happened to be a medley that contained his signature track, Purple Rain. A tragic but fitting closer.
Purple rain, purple rain.
War Pigs, Black Sabbath.
In the fields of bodies burning.
Nobody had any idea how close Ozzy Osbourne was to the end of his road when he took the stage at Villa Park in July of 2025. Billed as one huge celebration of Ozzy, Black Sabbath, and heavy metal in general, the show was a rousing success that saw the Prince of Darkness perform some of his biggest hits. A highlight for many was the Sabbath opener of War Pigs, our first look at the reformed band together on stage. Ozzy was confined to a chair, but his presence was felt from the moment the show began. This one last exertion was the ultimate goodbye to his fans, and just 17 days later, Ozzy had passed away. Purple Haze, Jimi Hendrix. If there ever was an artist who unfortunately passed away just as he was truly hitting his stride, it was Jimi Hendrix. Though his output up to 1970 was phenomenal, the general consensus was that he likely would have done even greater work had he extended his run into the 70s. His final performance came at the open-air Love and Peace Festival in Fehmarn, Germany, just 12 days before his untimely death. The set had more than a few classic songs, but it was his early hit Purple Haze that stood out as the show's center point. To this day, guitarists all around the world are marveling at just how genius Jimi and his riffs were. Comfortably Numb, Pink Floyd.
There is no pain you are receiving.
Given that the band has had years upon years of petty comments in the media and legal battles in the courtroom, the idea of a Pink Floyd reunion seemed unlikely. However, the right cause can be enough to unite even the greatest of enemies. So when Live 8 aimed to replicate the success of 1985's Live Aid, Bob Geldof managed to convince the legendary British prog rockers to put aside their differences. It wasn't a long set by any means, but every song hit home in a different way. For our money, hearing Comfortably Numb just one more time with Roger Waters and David Gilmour sharing vocals was a real once-in-a-decade kind of treat. Just don't hold your breath for another reunion. Rock and roll, Led Zeppelin. For most Led Zeppelin fans, the less said about their disastrous Live Aid comeback in 1985, the better. Though the iconic John Bonham had already passed at that point, the surviving members achieved a proper swan song with a one-off London gig in 2007. The show was a benefit concert to commemorate the life of music executive Ahmet Ertegun, and somehow, the elusive Zeppelin decided to reform. The gig itself was a huge success, and the band sounded like they hadn't missed a beat. Though they had written a dozen songs that would have been fitting as closers, Rock and Roll was the song that brought the curtain down on this legendary group. What an excellent choice it was! Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Get Back, The Beatles.
Do you know what music you're listening to?
The Beatles, obviously.
The Beatles,
yeah.
Yes. And this music you're now listening to is going to be on their new LP coming out very shortly. You like it?
Fabulous.
Yeah, definitely. Fantastic.
The first concert that brought us live performances of many of the songs the Beatles featured on their Let It Be album took place on the rooftop of their own company, Apple Corps. We didn't know it yet, but it would also be the last time the band would play live together. Seeing John, Paul, George, and Ringo making one final public appearance was a real treat, but they were not a band who were built to last. Out of all the songs they performed, their version of Get Back has had the most enduring impact. Though they were nearly at the end of their run, this was very clearly still the Beatles at the absolute peak of their powers.
Get back to where you want. Get back.
Thanks, Mo.
I'd like to say thank you on behalf of the group and ourselves. I hope we pass the audition.
But which performance do you consider to be the greatest in music history? Let us know in the comments below.